Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Several weeks ago, I shared an unboxing video of Queen & Company's School Days Shaped Shaker Kit. I know many kids have already gone back to school, but my kids don't actually start until right after Labor Day. But I did find some time to make a few more cards using this fun kit. I also picked up Queen & Company's brand new fun foils. These come in a 10-pack and there are 5 different varieties. Currently, I only have 4. That first pack is called Crushed Diamonds. This one is Pearls. These are just beautiful colors. Next up are the Metallics. So lots of shine in this pack. Each roll is 1 inch wide and contains 1.5 yards. So you'll have quite a bit of foil, and I love the nice varieties. And then this very last pack is called Foils. So a nice rainbow assortment of colors. I will be using some of these new foils on a couple of my cards. So let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. I'm using a card sketch from MFT and also some of the crushed diamond foils. So the foils are really easy to use. You don't have to heat set them. They basically just adhere to anything sticky. So for this card, those diagonal strips, I'm going to use some of the red line tape. This is by Queen & Company, and I'm putting 3 strips in that upper left-hand corner. Now for that wider strip in the middle, I didn't actually get the tape all the way to the edge, so I just cut out a really small triangle just to fill in that small gap. So I just went ahead and removed the backing on the tape, selected the red foil, rubbed it in place using the back side of the foil, and then just simply peel off the foil and it leaves that beautiful color in place. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing with the blue. So just give it a really good rub. Make sure to get the edges. And if you do have like a small piece that the foil doesn't adhere, just take that foil back and stick it right back down again until you have it nice and even. So then the final piece, I'm using some yellow. So I have the red and the blue, and then of course the yellow. Nice school colors. Now I'm using one of the foundation dies. This is a scalloped circle, and I'm putting it all the way to the edge of the paper, actually over the edge, and then I just trimmed it off so it was nice and flush on the card. And so for this card, I'm going to use the little schoolhouse. This is adorable. Now there are several dies needed to complete this little schoolhouse. So to start, I'm using one of the outline dies, and this is sold separately from the kit, but they're so useful to have. I like to cut out the outline die and the image frame with that same pattern paper. That way they go together. Now before I assemble the rest of the shaker card, I'm going to finish up this card front so I can adhere it to a card base. So I'm using some of the blue twine, wrapped it around the card a few times, and then I'm just going to adhere those back strips behind the card with some of the red line tape. I'll go ahead and remove that backing on the tape and then add some ATG to the rest, and then I'll adhere that card front onto a card base. And I do like to use a lot of ATG, anything sticky, because I want to make sure my card stays in place. And I did have an extra piece of the twine cut out because I'm going to add a little bow later, but I hadn't decided where I wanted to place it yet. So now I'm going to fill my shaker. So I have 2 different shaker toppings. I use some of the pearlies and then also some of the diamonds. Then I put my piece of acetate on top just to seal in all of those toppings, and then use some liquid adhesive to adhere the frame, and then I'll use the same liquid adhesive to assemble the rest of my little schoolhouse. And this is so cute, and I've heard a lot of people talk about you could use the same die for a church instead of a school. So I have the little bell up in the top, and then the small circle window. I did get a little extra glue, so I just wiped that away before it dried. Now, this window is super small, so you really got to be careful not to get too much glue on there. And while that dries, I'm just going to hold it in place using an acrylic block. So go ahead and stamp a sentiment, and this one's fun. It's "You put the class in classroom." And I just layered that with some blue cardstock. So now I decided I'm going to tie that bow on the right-hand side of the card, just underneath the school, because I'm going to put that sentiment on the left-hand side. So I'm going to use some of the inside foam piece from the shaker. You always save those because they come in handy later for just some foam adhesive, or you can actually attach the foil to it as well because it is sticky on both sides. So I just wanted to have the same dimension, so using that foam to use for the sentiment, then it keeps it all the same, nice and even. So a few finishing touches, I'm going to add just some small banners in that upper right hand corner. I used one of the stitched sentiment banners to cut these out, and then just trimmed one of them slightly smaller, and then I'm going to overlap them just a little bit. Most people know I have an obsession with adding small banners to my card. It just adds a nice little touch. So now I went ahead and pulled out some of the bling. So I have a variety. I have some of the red stars, I have some blue pearls, and then yellow jelly gems. I love the variety of bling that Queen & Company sells. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 1. I think this will be perfect to give to my daughter's teacher on the first day of school. So now moving on to card number 2. I'm using a sketch from Freshly Made Sketches. This is number 400, and the paper is from their All Bundled Up collection. It's one of my favorite paper lines by Queen & Company. And I do like to add layers to my cards, so I'm just using some cardstock from my stash. So this is a nice dark blue that goes really well with the paper collection. And you saw there's an oval cut out of the back. Well, I will be using that later. This is just a great way to save on cardstock, especially if you're real limited on a specific color. Card sketches are great for starting inspiration. You can follow them exactly, or you can modify them for what works best for you. If you are interested in any of the sketches that I share, I do have all of that listed on my coordinating blog post, and that link is in the description box below. So for the sentiment, I decided to use the U rule because I'm going to make a little ruler shaker. And of course, it has to be pink. I know rulers are normally yellow or kind of a wood tone, but I need a pink ruler. I'm using some of the pattern paper from this paper collection. Again, I used the outline die first for that background, and then I used some of the white, just a plain white cardstock for all the little measurement lines for the ruler. I used some more of Queen & Company's twine. This is the blue color. I just wrapped it around the card a couple of times, and then I'm using some of their red line tape just to adhere the end pieces to the back side. So I'll peel off those backers, add the ATG, and adhere this card front onto a card base. I always find it easier to have all of that assembled before I really get started on the shaker component. For the toppings, I chose some of the diamonds and also some more of the pearlies. And I will list all of the products in the description box below if you're interested in purchasing any of these items. So I'll put that acetate piece down and now pull out the liquid adhesive. And for the ruler, I'm attaching the little lines first. I'll put some more liquid adhesive down, and then I'll adhere that little frame. And it's hard to tell in the video, but all of these dies have a really nice faux stitching look to them. So next I'm going to attach my sentiment. And since it's going right over the twine, I don't want it all lumpy. So I'm just going to put some of the foam tape on each side of the twine and then just attach that oval right on top. And now for embellishments, I'm using some of Queen & Company's glitter paper. I used the foundation dies, a couple of different sizes of the stars. So I cut those out of that beautiful glitter paper. Trying to see where I wanted to place them on the card. Went ahead and tied my bow on that right-hand side. And I decided to pop up just a couple of the stars using some real thin foam tape. And then for the other ones, I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive and glue them flat onto the card. Give it a little different dimension. I love how well this glitter paper coordinates with this paper collection. It's beautiful colors. So now pulling out some more of the bling. I think it takes me the longest trying to figure out which bling I want to use because they have so many. So this time I have some of the white stars, some of the blue pearls, and then some purple of the petite posies. So there is my finished card, and I just love how this one turned out. So now moving on to card number 3. This sketch is by Sweet Sunday, and it's number 286. For the paper collection, I'm using the Magical Characters, and this is again by Queen & Company. I love the variety of colors in this paper collection. You can go with the red, yellow, and gray and black, or you can have like a green, blue, and orange combination. It's really fun. So for this card, I'm going to use some more of the foil. And I'm going to have it on that thin strip that goes on that left-hand side of the card. But I don't need to put foil on that whole piece since you're only going to see a little portion of it. So I went ahead and adhered some of the red line tape, and then this time I'm using the silver foil. So I just put that red line tape, just a small piece on each of the ends, and then again laid the foil right onto that adhesive, gave it a good rub, and slowly peeled it up, and it's like magic. I love how easy this foil is to use. Again, you can see there's an oval cut out of the back, so I will be using that later on in the card. And for this card, again, I have a circle that goes a little bit off of the card. And I find it easiest to adhere it onto that card front and then just use a pair of scissors to trim it nice and even. Now for this card, I'm going to be using the pencil die. I think this die is my favorite one in the whole kit. It's so fun. I have it cut out twice, and I'm going to adhere or assemble one of them without it being a shaker first. So once again, these have a lot of different little pieces, especially the little lead point at the end of this pencil. It's super tiny. I found it easier to put that drop of glue down first and then place the lead piece on top. So I'll assemble the eraser and then the little metal that holds that eraser on the pencil, I think. I used some specialty cardstock for that little metal part. And then I'll just go ahead and adhere that whole piece onto my card using some liquid adhesive. So for the other part, this is going to be a shaker. So I'm going to go ahead and start assembling it using that outline die on the back. And then I'll adhere that on my card before I start assembling anymore. And I do already have it on my card base, so that makes it ready to go. And I could start putting all of those shaker toppings in, but I want to give the glue just a few minutes to dry, because sometimes when you peel off that clear piece off of the foam, if the glue isn't dry, it's going to come off the card and spill your toppings everywhere. Trust me, I've done this before. So I just used another one of the oval dies for the sentiment. And this is, "You made this year just right, thank you." So now I think the glue is sufficiently dry. Go ahead and add some toppings. I used some of the diamonds and the jelly gems this time, so it's super sparkly. Put my acetate on top, and these little jelly gems decided to jump out. They're a little staticky, so I was struggling just a little bit here trying to pop them back into my shaker. So you'll see a few of them that are strays that they didn't get to be included. Once I got that acetate pushed down, all of those toppings sealed in place, I just used some more liquid adhesive to adhere the frame. And then I'll go ahead and assemble the rest of this pencil. So it's the same dies. This time you're just building it on top of the acetate. My daughter was being silly and asked if the pencil could really write. of course she knows it can't since she is 9 years old. Now I have both of the pencils all put together. I'm just going to put that acrylic block on top to let it dry. And it did sit there a little longer than those few seconds, of course. I'll put some foam dimension on the back of the sentiment, and I'm just going to put it slightly on top of that background pencil. And now to pull out all of the fun bling. So I have some of the red pearls, yellow stars, and this time the black jelly gems. I like to coordinate my bling with the pattern paper. So there is my finished card, and I just love the colors on this one. So now moving on to card number 4. And for this card, I'm not going to use a sketch at all, but I am going to include this beautiful specialty cardstock. This is called Holo Waves, and it's made by Tonic Studios, and it's a beautiful holographic paper. So you get a nice rainbow look whenever the light hits it. So I adhered some pearlescent white cardstock on front, cut that out using a rectangle stitch die. And then I have 5 crayons all cut out using the Petite Patterns paper. This is by Queen & Company. And I'm just going to lay them all across the card and want them nice and even. So I laid the outline dies down first. When I think the spacing looks nice and even, I can go ahead and start adhering them to the card. And I just started in the middle with the yellow, and then I kind of worked my way out. I find this is the easiest way to get those nice even spaces between similar images, especially when you're doing multiples on a card. So now that I have those all in place, just double checking that they're nice and straight, I can start adhering the rest of the pieces. So the crayon die would consist of 7 different pieces, mostly because of those little black strips that are on the top and the bottom of each of the crayons. I decided not to make a shaker card at all, simply because I would be using up 5 of the foam shaker pieces, and I'd have to buy 2 of the refill packs, and I would pretty much just wipe those out. And the fun thing about Queen & Company's dies is they work as non-shakers as well. So I decided this one's going to be a non-shaker card. So first I'm going to get all of those little ovals adhered, make sure to get them nice and straight, at least the best that I can. And then I am using some tweezers to adhere these little strips because they're pretty tiny. And I'm not going to put you through watching me glue all of these in place because it did take me a little while, but it was worth it because I love the finished look. So I will do the red, and then I'm just going to skip over the rest of the colors. So there they are, all assembled and ready to go. I pulled out some twines. So these are the Trio Trim Twines by Queen & Company. Decided to go with the primary colors. So I have a red, a yellow, and a blue. Just cut 1 strip of each. And then I'm going to lay them across that lower portion of the card. I'll adhere the ends to the back using some more of the red line tape. And I am separating them just slightly, because I will be tying a little knot, so it'll give it, instead of a straight line going across, it'll kind of have a little more interest. So I'll go ahead and adhere my card front onto a card base before I add anything else to the card. And I did layer out this entire card just using some black cardstock. It's kind of hard to tell in the video, but that's what I'm using. And then again, I cut out some oval die cuts. They just fit nicely for the sentiments. And this sentiment is "You Color My World." Goes perfectly with a nice rainbow assortment of crayons. And I decided to stamp it on some light gray. It seemed like the white was kind of washed out. And since this is going to go over that twine, I'm going to use some of the foam tape. And I just put 1 piece on each side of the twine and kind of sandwiched it together, and you see how it kind of squeezed it together slightly. And then just 2 more little pieces just so it's not drooping on the top and bottom. I'll go ahead and tie a knot, and I'm not going to do a bow. I just did a single knot. I'm going to trim all of the ends fairly short, about 1 inch long, and then I'm going to unravel each of the ends. This is kind of a cheater way to make a bow, but I always like the look, and I think it works better for masculine cards or feminine cards, but sometimes I think the bow makes a card a little more on the feminine side. So now that I have all of those pieces unraveled, I can add some bling. So again, I'm sticking with 3 different colors, going with the primary colors. So I have blue stars, red jelly gems, and yellow petite posies. I'm just putting a few on there. I don't want to go crazy overboard because the card already has a lot of shine and a lot of color. So this one was so much fun. I love how it turned out, especially with that holographic paper in the background. So now just here's a quick recap of the 4 cards I made using Queen & Company's School Days Shaped Shaker Kit. It's so hard to say. There's all those S's in there. This is such a fun kit. It works great for teacher or school cards, maybe for scrapbooking, but there's also sentiments in there that would work for non-school cards as well. I have included links to all of the products that I used in the description box below if you are interested in purchasing any of these items. Queen & Company shakers are the easiest shakers you will ever make. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.